Welcome to Her Imprint, part of the Impressions Exchange. I'm Denise Gustafson, your host. This podcast celebrates the remarkable women who are transforming the printing industry. We'll explore their journeys, from challenges to triumphs, and share the stories that leave a lasting imprint. Today, I'm welcoming Caitlin Roberts Sullivan. She's president and co-owner of Furbush Roberts Printing Company. So, Caitlin, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure, especially chatting with somebody from the Northeast as well.
We're about as Northeast you can get in the U.S.
Yes, up in Maine. So can you tell me a little bit about Furbush Roberts and where the company started and a little bit of what you're doing there right now?
Yeah, I'm the fourth generation to run this company. So it started with my great-grandfather back in 1938. And he was an apprentice and worked with Mr. Furbush, who had Furbush Printing Company. So when later he passed away, his wife worked there for a short time, and then they sold it to my great-grandfather. And I guess one of the dying wishes was to keep the Furbush name on the building. 4 generations later, here we are, Furbush Roberts Printing. And after him, my grandfather took over, and then my father, and now me. My father still works in the business a little bit, just a couple hours a day. He'll come in, he likes to keep his hand in it a little bit, and he orders some paper and stuff. It's still helpful, so it's nice to have someone to run things by, or if you need a second opinion.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hopefully he's not helicopter parenting at this point.
No, definitely not. No, we actually spent the last month in South Carolina to escape the cold. We've always had a really good relationship working together. I should back up a little bit, but when my grandfather had it, it was all letterpress. And then when my father came in, he was starting to move to offset printing.
Okay.
There's a story that my grandfather was like, offset printing? This is never going to catch on. And here we are now transitioning to digital printing, which is where 90% of it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so it's interesting that the changes in the company from the 4 generations, just the technology alone has been quite something. But
it's changed dramatically. And even if you go back earlier, you said that your great-grandfather was an apprentice at the company. Furbush Printing Company started even before that.
Yeah, that was in 1908, that company was. Yeah, and then he bought it in 38. Yeah.
So it's just crazy, that history of the company. Yes, it may have changed hands and owners across the years, but still, it's so interesting. So letterpress, offset's never going to replace letterpress. Obviously, we know what happened.
Yeah.
So I guess my question now, have you guys moved over to digital at this point as well?
We have, not 100%. We do still have a couple smaller 2-color presses, and then we have a DI press, which does 4 colors. And we still find the need for both of them, for digital and offset. So we've kept it so far, and we're lucky to have a great pressman that can run those.
Those are a rare breed, I'm hearing.
Oh, yes. From what I hear, a lot of people switch to total digital when their pressman retires and they can't find somebody else. And like, we're going digital. Yeah, we're lucky that right now. So you never know. Down the road, we may have to switch. But yeah, they definitely are a dying breed. It used to be in the tech schools more than it is now. So I'm sure
very, very true. So is there anybody that wants to apprenticeship for an offset pressman?
Not that I've heard yet, but if you hear one, send them my way.
Sometimes within companies, you hear some of the younger generations that say, that's really interesting. I want to learn that. But you haven't really come across those folks yet.
No, and we're a small printing company, like 7 people full time. So everyone has their role that they play. A lot of our employees have been here a really long time. We haven't had a lot of movement in and out or new people, but yeah.
So if I hear somebody that's interested in becoming a pressman, I will send them your way.
Sure, and if they don't mind winter, yeah.
I might have other people beating down my door as well, but you've asked first, so we're good.
Okay, right.
So how did you get started? Obviously, you have a family history, but was that what you wanted to do? Was that like foreordained in some ways for you to go into the business?
Believe it or not, I've actually always wanted to do that. I think probably because when I was young, I looked up to my father, and I was like, oh, I want to do what he does. And so I've always wanted to do that. I never felt pressure to do it either. I have a sister, and she didn't want to go into it, and neither did they pressure her into it. It would have been great if she did. So
what did your sister go into, I have to ask?
social work.
So you went social work. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
totally different direction. I definitely had the interest in business and I liked graphics. I wasn't always an artist myself, but I could see good design. Then I went to RIT in Rochester, New York. And then it was, oh, yeah, this is all really cool. It really all came together at that point for me. And then between that and co-ops here in the summer, just learning all kinds of stuff and other people having interest, young people having interest in it too at that time.
Now, for you, did you have that aha moment that it really settled within you that you said, this is my career? This is really where I see myself? Or was it something you just always thought you would do?
I always thought I was going to do it from a young age, but I think it was once I went to college that I was like, oh yeah, this is cool. And this is like bigger than I even thought it was as far as the industry, because you're looking at it from a different view. 'Cause in college, they have all different aspects of it. But yeah, I think at that point, probably that I was like, oh yeah, this is good. I definitely want to do this. And yeah.
What was it like going to RIT and going in through that print program for you?
The program itself was wonderful. It came well recommended. I went and it was, for me, it was like far away from home, but it was great. The whole like community, the printing school was smaller as far as some of the other large programs they have at RIT. But because of that, you really got to know the instructors and your classmates. So I had a great time and learned so much and had contacts that you've talked to today. And so it's been great.
Now, with part of that, you said you keep in contact with some of them. So networking, your networking started back in college for you in the
Right.
industry.
Yeah. Yeah.
How, how important is that for you?
I think it's great, but it starts it. So that alone is not the full puzzle, but it's definitely a piece of it to figure out that it really is important to network and to keep some of those contacts. So that's been great. And then some people went in printing and then went a different direction, but are still connected to some of the professors or something. So there's always that. But it definitely drove you down the path of these connections are important. And then you could move forward in your career and be like, oh yeah, let's see if I can make more connections. And since I've been part of the NPSOA, the National Print and Sign Owners, and then those connections all over the U.S. too. Yeah, it's great to have.
Yeah, definitely. So I have a random question about RIT. How many women were in the program when you were there?
Ooh, I have to think. It was not a lot. I would say maybe 25%, 20%, something like that. No, it wasn't a lot, but I wasn't intimidated by that either. I feel like I knew that going in.
Based on family history and
Right.
the
Knowing the business and yeah, exactly. Yeah.
so you were never intimidated by the fact that you were going to be, in some cases, in rooms by yourself as a woman, maybe representing your company, maybe in different capacities, not obviously as a co-owner or as a president, especially early on in your career. That wasn't intimidating to you?
Less being in Rome, some of it's just more of, I don't know. I feel like it's not, maybe because I grew up in this environment where, yes, it was a lot heavily male dominated, but we had such a family atmosphere and a welcoming kind of community, if you will. So I didn't feel it there. I feel like in school, though, there was sometimes, but there was always like one or two girls anyway. So I never felt like it was like all me. I feel like maybe more sometimes you'd end up in these sales situations where there's 5 salesmen and you, or something like that would be more so for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going back to networking, and networking to me in my mind also sometimes links with mentorship and career development. So obviously you had your father to help you. I'm guessing he was a huge mentor to you.
Huge. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Even still today, even when he's not here, he calls and checks in and we talk about what happened and if we have any questions. But yeah, no, he's been huge. And I would also say probably being part of that NPSOA has been a big change for me too. Seeing those people once a year, like again, they're printers, they're print owners, which is like what I am, all over the US. And then when you go back, whether they have the email form or something like that, and or side conversations of people like, oh my gosh, this just happened today. What would you do? There's been emails and stuff like that along the way with I even like specifically with some women too that connected. That if you have questions or run into problems, that they would happy to answer any questions and talk to you.
Because in some cases they may have encountered something that, you as a woman leading a company that they may have encountered as well. So they might be able to offer you some advice on how to deal with it, especially if it's personnel issues or different biases that might crop up from salespeople or vendors that you use or other things.
This is not really my story, but somebody else. It was somebody I connect with, and she had the same issue with a salesperson not taking her seriously. And she reaches out to me and some other people. Have this ever happened to you? Can you believe this happened? It definitely happens today, but it's nice to have a group of women to go back to. What did you do in this situation?
And what do you do in those situations?
That's a good question. Sometimes it's not buying from them, finding a different vendor.
I'll take my millions and go next door.
Right. And sometimes it might be speaking up. Just so you know, I am ready to buy. I am a decision maker and that kind of thing. I don't know if there's a true right answer.
I don't know if there is either, but then the question is, how can we, I don't know if it's educate or change that thinking on the part of some of those people that have that. Maybe it's an unintentional bias. It's something that I've noticed that in a lot of situations, if there's a man and a woman, a lot of people just automatically go to the man and just assume that they are the owner, that they are the decision maker. And that's not always the case.
No, especially today. I feel like there's more women print owners than there used to be. And maybe they're, like you said, it's bias, but also some of these people are old school. They may be in their 60s or something. But I think that plays a role too.
Things have changed. As you said, the technology has changed. So has the makeup of the industry. There are more women in many different roles, in many different levels, in many different positions. Now, for you, you had men in your father, your grandfather leading the company. How important is it for you to have or network with those other women CEOs or to have them in those like positions?
It's crucial. I think that's why it made such a difference for me, because I've had these men to look up to, which is fantastic. And it really helped, but also just to have the perspective of the women, whether I'm having the issue or not. Sometimes we can talk it out, but it really is the different perspective, I feel like.
And I think women, especially like C-suite women, they may have encountered some of the issues like work-life balance. Have they decided to go and have a family? Have they decided just to stick with a career? Have they done both?
That's so hard.
How do you manage both?
Yeah. It's the $1 million question. I feel like you couldn't. I have 2 kids of my own. They're teenagers now. But when they were young, I was fortunate to have my dad here. He, again, family-owned company. My dad had kids. My grandfather had kids. They know what it is. And I was like very fortunate that my father was like, oh, your kids are sick, if you want to stay home or what have you. But meanwhile, feeling the pressure that you need to be here. So it's definitely a balance. I say it's a balance, but nothing's balanced. It's really, I don't know, maybe you have 11 cups and it's either 6 and 5. Like you can't equally divide them. But I always felt like I could do, if it's busy at work, I'm good. If it's busy or crazy at home, but when they both happen at the same time, then I was like, I do not have this handled.
And they always seems to happen all at the same time, doesn't it?
There's certain times a year that it was like, oh my gosh, it's so busy, but the kids are sick or whatever it is, like events or whatever. Yeah, but you do the best you can, basically, and muddle through and taking time for yourself. I've been fortunate that I work across the street from a gym, so I do make efforts to go to the gym at lunchtime. It splits my day so that if I am here, but again, that's always been like a little bit of my time. So when things are crazy, home here, or I had that, yeah, a little self-care.
But it's interesting, like you have a family company, you're in the family too. So there's probably something a little different. If there was a woman coming in now, or a lot of women, they work for larger companies. How do they navigate that and make that decision? I know I've spoken with some women that they've just taken the time off and then they come back to the workforce. That's a huge decision point that I think that women have to make that men don't.
Oh, definitely. Yes. Because men would just go to work. But yes, and a lot of women, can I work part-time trying to juggle it? But because of I've been through it, I have someone here who has young kids and I'm like, when she calls in, I'm like, I get it. I've been there. I have empathy towards that. It can make me a better boss for that.
Yeah, definitely.
But it definitely is hard. I feel like in corporate, I feel like bigger companies have the different rules and I would say less, maybe more rigid, less flexible rules. That would be certainly harder.
And we all know the job still has to get done.
No,
It's not like the work goes away.
Yes. And now, at least now that there's you can do some things remotely. When my kids were young, like that wasn't a thing yesterday. Yeah, but it is hard. And some of it you can do remotely, some you can't. So it's hard.
Like I say, you can't really strap an offset press on your back and take it home to work.
Right, exactly.
You have to physically be in the building for that. So then it's hard though. So you have some people that their jobs require them to be on site because it's a physical job, but then others that have that flexibility. Then how does that work? Is it split shifts? Is it other things? It's a whole other conversation, I think, that we're starting to have as an industry about how to support and how to be flexible for men and women. Because I know some men are wanting to look to take parental leave and other things because they're more involved with their family as well.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And I think, like I said, being small, we're able to be a little more flexible that way. But again, I've not worked for a giant corporate companies, so I don't have a lot of firsthand knowledge with that, except that the rules are a little more rigid. But I think post-COVID that people are a little more flexible, or I had to be flexible then, so they've learned how to, like, maybe we can make this work. Maybe you can do part-time if you're in an office setting or something that, and then to help with your childcare or what have you. Yeah.
And now, of course, we have laptops, we have smartphones, but I guess sometimes those can also be anchors in a way, because then you're always tied to both sides. So you could be home, but dealing with work stuff. You could be at work dealing with home stuff. So I don't know if it's good or bad, honestly.
It's a double-edged sword, I feel like. It is. And I do, like, when I'm at home, I turn off my email notifications so that if I know something's coming in, or if I want to check to see if someone made a reply on the weekend, I may look, but it's not ding, 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 this email's coming. So I do try to separate a little bit, but it is hard. And then being a mom, sometimes your phone goes off and you're like, wait, that's my son. What, is this an emergency? What's happening? Yeah.
And it could just be, no, where did you put such and such in the house?
Right. Are you broke down on the side of the road? Are you looking for a sock?
Or you're looking for a snack and you don't know where we put the pizza bagels. I don't know. I actually have no idea what teenagers eat these days. So that's true.
I feel like it's a lot of, I had one that ate pretty well, and now my younger one, who's 16 now, it's pretty much, I feel like it's packaged whatever, I don't know, chips, granola bar or something. I was like, how about you make something?
How about something that actually was living?
Right. So this is why we make a full dinner. So at least I know he gets one good meal.
Yes, indeed. Now, as you were taking on the role, obviously when you came back from RIT, you didn't start as president of the company. How did you start back when you came back from university?
Yeah. So when I came back was like a customer service rep, and I helped and learned from the other customer service reps that were here. So it was definitely a good starting point. When I was in high school, I certainly helped in the bindery as well. And when I came back, if there were big jobs, I definitely went in the bindery and helped that too. Yeah, it was interesting when I came back. One thing I'd mentioned was it was hard because everyone here had been here forever. You're talking people 40s, 50s, 60s, and I'm 20 something. I'm like, who am I? You have so much more experience than me. But it definitely took time, I guess, for them to, A, trust me, but two, to me to know, like, to default to them on some of their wisdom because they've been there for so long. And then them to know, oh, she's here. We know eventually she'll probably take over the company. But I do feel like overall it was a slow progression, though. Customer service and then vice president and president. And I feel like it was so slow at that point that the title changed. But at that point, I was doing the things anyway. Yeah. But I think it was good that it was slow because A, helped me learn the entire ropes all the way through, and also made all the other employees know that I'd put in the time and did all the things.
Yeah.
to get to here. Yeah.
What was the most challenging for you? Was it the age gap between the really experienced and you coming in with your own experience from RIT? You have a different kind of experience, a book experience in some ways.
For me, it was the age thing coming in more so than the gender. I don't, like I said, because it was family oriented and I had known them for years, but I definitely think so. And there were some changes along the way, even early on, that I'm like, why are we doing it this way? How about that? And it could have been small, but they usually, oh yeah, the point, let's try that. And so they were generally open to that. I definitely would say that it was probably the age thing. And probably some of it was in my head of I'm this young person and they're experienced.
But that's the thing. You have those, in some cases, you said there was this big old age gap. So is it ageism both ways? Oh, what do they know? I just came from university. I know all the new things. Or is there, this is how we've done it. This is the process. This is how it is done here. That could be that clash too, in some cases.
Yeah. And usually like my changes were usually towards like the customer service front office end. I wasn't necessarily, besides like equipment and stuff we might have bought, but I wasn't telling the people, like the pressman, how to now change the way he's running press. So I think that was probably why it was less of a clash. But also my personality is not this lion in the room. I'm like, how about this? What if you do this? So I think it's a little softer, which that's just how I am. But I think maybe that helped too.
Yeah, I'm sure it did.
Yeah.
And like you said, they also knew that you would eventually be taking on the company, but you still had time to grow.
Correct. Yes. Yep. And that I did. Yeah.
So I guess one of my favorite questions, and one that I like to conclude with, is in knowing what you know now, so your history in the company, RIT, even your family history in the industry, knowing all of this that you know, if you were just going to walk in the door today, brand new, shiny and new, what advice would you give yourself?
I would definitely say to soak in all the knowledge from people around you that have been experienced. And even though you're done school, you're not done learning, the continuation of learning after school. Also, the mentorship aspect of it. I don't think I grasped as early as I should have the benefits of that. And there's even people around me now, they're like a mentor for me, but also from a different angle. They may not be in the printing industry, but they're around here and they're in business. So I still get some kind of mentorship and friendship for that. But I definitely undervalued that when I came out of school, I would say. Yeah.
Why did you undervalue it? I'm curious.
I don't think I didn't seek it out, I guess is what I should say. Like I didn't, which I think would have been helpful back then.
Okay.
Yeah. And granted, I did have my father as a mentor right there. It was just anybody beyond him. I never was like, oh, yeah, let me look for other people.
Yeah, because you said you didn't join NPNOSA, if I remember.
NPSOA.
SOA.
Yeah, a lot of letters.
A lot of letters.
Yeah.
When did you join that?
I think it was probably, I think it was a couple years before COVID. So maybe 2017 or so. Yeah. It was later on for sure. I graduated in 98. I think I was back here in 99. There was a bunch of years. And we had, when I first came back, we were actually part of Pine, the Printing Industries of New England. And that was good too. But this group here, for some reason, like a really good fit. And I think they just do a good job of staying connected. Yeah. And then, like I said, the mentorship through there.
But it's just interesting for you and your company. You didn't really have a ton of other connections besides the company itself until you really started looking outside to the association. Like you said, you had Pine, but only to a certain degree.
Yeah. And I will say we are lucky that we're in an area where a lot of the printing companies are friendly with each other. So we certainly did have some camaraderie with other printers. There's always talking, I don't know if it's mentorship, but more camaraderie with them. Yeah. And sometimes it's about equipment. Sometimes it's about ink manufacturers. Sometimes it's about whatever's happening because you're a small business owner. Yeah. So we're lucky because we do a lot of work for other printers. So when they come in, like, oh, how's things going? And you start these conversations with them. But we're lucky to have that too. So I did have those local connections as well.
Caitlin, it was a pleasure chatting with you today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us on this journey to celebrate and amplify the voices of women in the printing industry. If you have a story to share or know someone whose journey deserves to be highlighted, we'd love to hear from you. Together, let's continue inspiring and empowering the next generation of leaders. Until next time, keep leaving your imprint. This is Her Imprint. See you soon.